on this computer. Thank you, Zoom. All right. Thanks for taking the time to chat real quick. I know it's the end of your day.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you located right now?
Oh, I'm in Los Angeles, so
Okay.
yeah. So I guess let's get this going. Who sought out who for this collaboration? Because it feels like it's a very intimate film. Like it's really, it's just perhaps you two. So I was wondering how this came about.
Thomas?
Thank you, David. I had optioned the script about 10 years earlier and spent many years like writing and rewriting and working with Bob Pyle, the author of the original book, whose true story it is. And we got to the point where, oh, who's going to play Bob? And David and I met, and I think we just both really saw the movie eye to eye. And I started to get really excited after 8 or 9 years of just picturing the actual guy, now being able to picture David in that role and what he would bring to it. And then I think it became really collaborative. Basically, after that first meeting, I mean, we think we rewrote the script for it was like 6 month period.
Yeah.
There's chunks of it David wrote, and he gave extensive notes and volley stuff back and forth. Yeah, it was very a group effort for sure.
And so what excited you about the project, David?
I thought it was a really compelling story. First of all, it's really you get this guy who's evolving and changing and sorry, that sound was distracting me. What was that? Is that a Roomba? What's going on? Is that on my end?
Uh,
I don't know. I
Oh,
heard a fuzz and
okay.
then it stopped.
Okay. Sorry. So I the story is very compelling, uh, and I like that it was based on a real person and a real person's experience, and how that person goes on this is in a state of grief, and he goes on this very difficult journey, both physically and emotionally, and then he comes out the other end of it, uh, which is quite an accomplishment for what he did. A changed man, and that's for an actor, that's a juicy thing to tackle. And so the story was good, and then the script was good. So that's part two down. And then, as Tom said, meeting with Tom and us discussing it. And if you're gonna spend 5 weeks in the woods with no amenities with somebody, you better make sure that you're on the same page, and your goal is the same thing. And we hit it off very quickly, and so yeah, it was just let's do this.
That's awesome. I was actually curious about so this journey that Pyle goes on. Uh, I couldn't help but notice that he sort of became more and more vulnerable and like literally exposed to the elements in certain scenes. And I was wondering sort of what that was like. Was there a certain, were you nervous about like literally being naked in the woods, or was it sort of freeing? Did it feel like, was it exciting to like really be out there in nature au naturel?
Um, I wouldn't say exciting. We would have gotten an X rating if I was excited. Um, but uh, it was I was fine with it. I mean, I knew going into it, because it was in the script. There was going to be two or three scenes where I was naked. I knew that we would shoot it somewhat tastefully, but I was prepared for it. It was fine. Um, and Although at the at the waterfall, the first time I take my clothes off, and was dramatically both colder and more, and the water coming down was painful. And I fully expected, especially in the script, and even when I got there, it was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'll run into the waterfall, and it'll be like a tropical, Sports Illustrated type situation. But it was fucking freezing, and the water coming down, the pressure was just like, I might as well have been in the ring with Conor McGregor, McGregor. It was not pleasant at all. So yeah, I wouldn't call it freeing.
Okay.
Not freeing.
I was also wondering, since you guys were on location, were there any encounters with wildlife that were perhaps unexpected or scary or just funny?
Tom?
Yes. Yeah, there was a mountain lion, which turns out those are a lot bigger than you think. That
It's got the word lion in it.
It
So
does, right? You would think that would be a good tip off. It's not a mountain cat.
yeah.
Yeah, so we got David. You tell this way better than I do about the safety briefing we got about the mountain lion.
Yeah, there were a couple of people who had, because some people had pictures, remember, like, and they would zoom in on it, and there was a mountain lion, and I think most of us, until we had the safety meeting, you'd start every shoot with a safety meeting because every day there were kind of perils, and we had to be walk through them, and there was like a parks person at this particular location, and I think we knew there was a mountain lion in the area, but I know, speaking for myself and some other folks, were like, "Oh wow, crazy man!" But the parks guy was like, "Okay, so there's a mountain lion, and it has been spotted. It's a female, and we don't know if there are cubs around, but they will attack you. They will definitely attack you. All right, have a good shoot." And
That
we
was it.
spent that day. I mean, there were numerous times we had to walk across because it was the top of the lava tubes we were shooting, and we had to climb down and climb up this little kind of bowl, and uh, and from there to the kind of quote unquote road, that was like the scariest 100 yards I've ever walked. I mean, everybody's looking for a mountain lion that's going to attack us, uh, and yeah, it was.
A lot of bear poop too. A lot of fresh, steamy bear poop. That's not a thing you want to see first thing in the morning.
No. That'll wake you up though, the adrenaline.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious about the choice to, or what it was like working with the Avett brothers, or Avett brothers. I always say their name wrong.
It turns out it's Avett.
It is Avett. Okay, great. I have been saying it right then. Because most of the music was from Emotionalism, at least the ones that I picked up, and I was curious about what about that album resonated for you with this story.
Yeah, I was really lucky. It was such a gift, like as a director, in that I think just about every piece of music we knew we would have the rights to prior to filming. So most of the scenes were shot with a particular piece of music in mind, and I would listen to it on the way to set or what between takes and things. And I think it really allowed me to shoot like using that as sort of a bed in terms of the rhythms of the scenes and things. That never happens. And they were just great. They just fell in love with the project, and they and their record label did us a solid and let us kind of go shopping and use some really great music, not just by them, but by other artists like Samantha Crane and the National Reserve, and people that I think really capture that. I almost imagine the music. It almost reminded me of when Kermit the Frog decides to leave the marsh and go on the journey, and you hear the banjo and stuff, and you're like, all right, he's kind of innocent, and I think maybe some bad stuff might be about to happen. And I think their music matches what's going on in Bob's mind really, really well in terms of his like childlike view of the world, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, I actually that's a great I guess I'm not sure, Annie, how much time we've got left, but there was an interesting, I think for me, some of the layered themes of the sort of naivety of Bob, but also the sort of like hubris that he has when he goes in thinking that he's gonna like just do it and he knows best. And I thought that was really interesting the way it tied into sort of themes with science and modern conservation efforts. And I was wondering if you guys would both, if you had thoughts on sort of those sort of like larger themes or message of the movie that you thought was like, or for you was the most important aspect of it.
Well, that's a very astute observation. First of all, I'll let Tom take that, but that's a good observation.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I really love about Robert Pyle's writing that I hope we captured in the movie. Here's this guy that has some very specific views on how he thinks environmentalism and the world works. in some ways he's proven right, and in other ways, like he gets to that logging camp, he gets totally dressed down about how he views the world and how the role loggers play in this ecosystem. And I really liked that he got challenged in that way. And I know for me, that makes me stronger, because either I change my mind, or in being forced to argue my point, I become more convinced of it. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with that.
I think one would go into that scene expecting. I think it's a really good scene, well written and important, because you kind of assume as a viewer, as a passive viewer, like, okay, this is going to be told from the angry, ecological, warrior perspective, and that's not what happens at all. First of all, they have a dialogue, which rarely happens, in today's world, but they actually talk to each other, listen to each other, and it's not simply like I'm right, you're wrong. They both have valid, equal, uh, you know, uh, takes on it, and you don't see that a lot, you know.
Yeah, totally. And I guess one final thing, I was really intrigued by sort of like the literal presence of Bigfoot, but also sort of what the sort of Sasquatch meant as like a sort of metaphor, like this sort of like looming presence, especially because the story is so much about Bob's grief and process. And I was wondering sort of what it do you how do you guys feel about Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and are you guys perhaps believers now?
David's face says he's in the tank for Bigfoot.
I
He's
I I will say that I do not believe in Bigfoot, but I do uh, agree with Bob's actual writings about the possibility of Bigfoot. Um, but I don't simply dismiss it out of hand, but I understand humans' needs for uh, myth and explanations, and they're being so overwhelmed by nature and needing to, you know, explain things. But I'll let Tom's better at this question.
I don't know about that, but I think it was twofold. For Bob personally, I loved how Bigfoot became almost like this role model for him to learn to stand up for himself and act out and reconnect and push back on the many ways in which the world seems to be wanting to crush him, literally, I guess, and figuratively. And I also really like how Robert Pyle in his book approached Bigfoot, which was ultimately that it doesn't really matter if Bigfoot exists or not. What he felt was important was that Bigfoot is a way for us to remember that we're connected to the natural world and a part of the natural world, and came from that place. And I just thought that was really totally different than any other Bigfoot thing I had seen.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, for me, it was an interesting sort of like Bigfoot as this sort of terrifying, unknowable uh, entity, but also as like a way of thinking about death and like the loss of his wife that I found really, I don't know, it was touching. Also, I think I was curious about the sort of element of the fact that it's his wife that sends him on this journey, because a lot of the typical narratives of like running away to the woods or like eat pray love is like the person running away, choosing to run away themselves, and she's giving him that push. And I was wondering if you guys would mind talking a little bit about the sort of dynamic between Bob and his wife, and what the chemistry was like between you and Deborah Messing.
David, you want to go for it?
Yeah, with Deborah, she's has a whole process, and every actor is different. Every actor approaches what they have to do and get to that place differently. And she had to, just dive right in, playing a woman who was, when you see her, when you meet her, the only time she's on camera, really, she's dying of cancer. And she knows she is, and she knows she has a limited amount of time. And and she had a whole process, and she did a lot of research and talked to Bob and relatives, and uh, was wearing her clothing, the real Tia, the real person. Yeah, and it's jewelry, right, Tom? And
Yeah, jewelry and some of the clothes. That's all Tia's real artwork that's around
yeah,
the house and in their bedroom.
and I know that I don't think I could have gotten to where I needed to get to emotionally, especially in the bathroom scene and the without Deborah really doing the heavy lifting of that, um, because she's dying and I'm just reacting to her dying, which is she was able to pull that off, and I so I'm greatly appreciative of that. Sure.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it. Time is up, but thank you guys so much again. I'm very, very excited for this to hit streaming. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Thanks,
Well,
Brittany.
good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.